All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative here with the last week in Mortgage Today, our weekly whirlwind through all the latest and greatest news and updates from the mortgage industry. Each week, I am pleased to be joined by one of our lender members as my co-host. And this week, one of our earliest and first lender members going way back. Keith, I remember meeting you, I think it was at the IMB conference. I was not even at TMC for, I don't think, like 6 months. And, you were kind of like, you know what, I got a good feeling about what you guys are doing, and I'm going to jump on board. So Keith Canter, CEO of First Community Mortgage, thank you for that. And thank you for joining as the co-host today.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate you allowing me to join. How many members are you up to now?
We have 241 members, and I think you were like number 10 or 11.
I don't know about that. I do know that it's been one of the best investments we've made in regards to being involved with TMC. We're really looking forward to the conference coming up in Los Angeles and getting back face to face.
As are we, and thank you, Keith. That means a lot coming from you, and appreciate it, and looking forward to the conversation today and getting your perspective on a myriad of different things going on in the industry. So for our live viewers, you might want to turn down the brightness on your video screen. I'm badly sunburned today. I run the world's biggest wiffle ball tournament 8 years in a row now, and evidently it was very sunny this weekend. So, but on to the matter at hand. Keith, before we get started though, if you could, to level set with the audience, just tell the audience a little bit about First Community Mortgage, your mortgage operation, some things maybe that make you unique, and anything interesting you have in the hopper here as we get into the heart of 2021.
Sure. So First Community Mortgage will be celebrating our 20-year anniversary this upcoming May. So really excited about that. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of a local community bank located here in Middle Tennessee. We kind of run all channels: retail, wholesale, correspondent, do some servicing. Last year, set records like everybody on the call. It's just a tremendous year, but really fortunate that this year we're kind of on the same pace. We might exceed what we did last year. Somewhere around 3.6 billion is what we'll fund this year. And, really, Rich, just blessed to have a tremendous leadership staff in place, which really does the heavy lifting and allows me to work on strategy, vision for the organization. And as I was sharing, we're really excited about the opportunity to get back to kind of a normal pace at our organization, working on our business instead of just kind of treading water. So we're tearing things apart, looking at different processes, looking at redundancies, looking to obviously bring in some new technology and kind of right size the organization as we move into 2022. So exciting times for sure, and really good time to be in the mortgage business.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. I think the biggest news right now in the mortgage industry is the announcement that Fannie Mae made last week, saying that they are going to start to allow rental payment history to be considered in qualifying lenders for mortgage loans, and only the positive side of it though. Only on-time payments, only if borrowers choose to. Anytime you have, really since 2007 to 2008, any loosening of the credit box, that inspires pundits and others to question if this is the beginning of the swing of the pendulum the other way in a direction that's not healthy. All in all, very largely positively received by the mortgage industry. I know you guys do so much lending for first-time home buyers, community lending. Your take on the recent announcement by Fannie?
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle, to no surprise. Anytime we can look outside of the box and do things that are responsible to help underserved or minorities achieve home ownership, I think that's a great thing. And I go back to the day we got our FHA approval, full FHA approval at First Community. I went and got my DE, believe it or not. And don't ask me for the number, but I actually have my DE certification somewhere, and didn't use it much. But we were taught the 3 C's or the 4 C's of underwriting, and that's credit, capacity, collateral, and I guess you could add capital if you're doing the 4 C's, but we were only learning the 3 C's. And obviously this is talking about credit. And while the surface makes sense, right? You use the positive, but why wouldn't, and I understand a lot of it's going to be automated, but you wouldn't overlook a missed mortgage payment. So you're right. There's kind of two sides to this. One, the positive of, I think it was 17% of I don't know when the data set was looked at, 17% more people would have qualified for a home loan. And that's a wonderful thing to happen. But you also don't want to put people in homes and set them up for failure, as we did in the Great Recession. I think all of us were kind of guilty of expanding the credit box too far and putting people in homes that maybe didn't qualify. So that's what we'll have to watch. We'll have to be patient and see how this goes. But it's clearly a directive now with the FHFA and HUD to really press hard to see what we can do about getting more of the underserved and minorities into homes, which again is a great thing on the surface, but we don't want to do something where we put someone in a home and then all of a sudden, where foreclosures are starting to rise again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the mortgage meltdown, clearly government policy by both the Bush and the Clinton administrations, some fault there that led to just an expansion of the credit box using Fannie and Freddie as vehicles that was unhealthy. I don't think this move puts us there, but I think what it does, and again, the number that you mentioned, that was the part of the report that really shocked me, up to 17% of all, like that was to me, a shockingly large percentage of declined borrowers that could have been approved if rental payment history was considered. That number really surprised me, but it was also a sign that the Biden administration clearly is going to use Fannie and Freddie as a vehicle to pursue their housing agenda, almost a flip-flop of what we saw with Trump and Calabria, kind of trying to put the clamp down and to move towards getting them out from under government conservatorship. And now I think we're just kind of going in the opposite direction. Fannie and Freddie are going to be used to pursue housing goals, and it'll be interesting to see how it's going to play out. Well,
it's a couple things. One is, back to the underwriting standards, and, there's all this talk about when's the crash coming, when's the real estate bubble going to happen, and when's the big correction happening. Well, one thing that's going to mitigate that, we can talk about supply and demand, all day long. And I clearly see a large, demand and an undersupply of homes, but we'll move off that topic for a minute. But the credit standards that we've maintained, today, as opposed to, the Great Recession, pre, 2008, they're so much better today. And that's what I don't want to see deteriorate to the point where it collapses or weakens and exacerbates a healthy correction or a softening of the market. So, that if we keep, putting good quality standards, forward, again, not to exclude or not to get creative and find ways to help those that definitely deserve to get a home. Again, it's a balance, but we can't just, loosen things to where we undermine something that's on a positive trajectory. And then the second thing I was going to say is it kind of leads into, you were talking about that, move away from moving the agencies out of conservatorship. How about the collaboration that's now taking place between HUD and the FHFA on fair lending? Another sign that we're going to kind of mesh these entities together, which is, like you say, the opposite way of bringing them out of conservatorship, even more into government control.
Absolutely, yeah, and Fannie and Freddie have always had, fair lending and affordable housing goals that are put on them every year. We've had partnerships with both GSEs really since inception. It's something we talk with them about. We've done some initiatives. One that First Community participated in 2 or 3 years ago that was, designed around Fannie and Freddie supporting marketing efforts for affordable lending products. Just being candid, that was brought to us to work with them on that because they weren't hitting their affordable goals. But as you just mentioned, HUD and FHFA just announced they're going to join forces on kind of real enforcement of Fannie and Freddie on hitting those affordable housing goals. So I can just tell you how this one's going to play out. We're going to see, some new products, some expansion of current products for low to moderate borrowers and affordable housing initiatives. And I think you're going to start to see it pretty soon because again, they're going to be held to these higher standards.
Yeah, and the fear I have, Rich, is that we get back to, and if the guides or the fair lending laws are just clear and followed, but a lot of times we can't get guidance in the industry, the last thing I want to do is go back to a Richard Cordroy, the enforcement by we're gonna enforce the rules by fines. Like we're gonna go out and find this lender and by the fines and enforcement actions. That's how you need to follow the rules, and that's just such a backwards way of working with the industry. And I'm hoping that's not the case. I hope that there'll be collaboration. But from all appearances, it's Sandra Thompson, correct? That's the FHFA interim head. I think she's done really good. And I hope that she continues, and the FHFA continues working with the MBA and groups like TMC to drive policy, because that's the type of collaboration we need to continue on the healthy path we've been on.
This is the last week in Mortgage Today. I'm Rich Swerbinski with the Mortgage Collaborative. This week, joined by First Community Mortgage CEO Keith Canter. Any questions, comments anybody has for Keith or I, or that you want to incorporate into the show, just pump them in the chat with the Q&A, and we'll be happy to voice them aloud. Keith, moving on to away from government policy into some of the large public mortgage lenders in America, many, if not most of whom reported second quarter earnings recently. I think not a lot to be excited about. It was Loan Depot and Home Point both reported, huge decreases in margins and net income. UWM again also really drastically reduced profit margins. Rocket Mortgage, the same thing. Some of the iBuyers like Open Door lost about $150 billion in the second quarter. And we were kind of talking about it before we went live. It's tough to be a public mortgage lending company. The business is just so cyclical and competitive and compliance laden at that level. It's tough. Your thought on some of the earnings reports that we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, not surprising at all. And they all had record volumes, right? Or more volume than before. And obviously it's just a function of margin. Margins already starting to compress and get lower. It's going to be interesting to see that the MBA will be putting out probably within the next few days, maybe next week, the peer comparisons of non-publicly traded companies. And if you look back at 2020 in our peer set, and again, we're a wholly owned subsidiary that operates in several channels. So I know all of the callers today may not be in that peer set, but they're fairly similar. And I know that in 2020, which was obviously an abnormal year, profits in bips per loan were just under 140 bips in our peer group. In Q1, that had quickly declined already to just under 100 basis points. And I'm really probably looking for Q2 to be somewhere between 50 and 70 basis points per loan in our peer group. And, it was interesting. I was kind of prepping for this call and I found this quote by Michael McCauley, who's with Garrett and McCauley. And it said that lenders need to prepare for margin compression because this is what he said, because it's likely to be significantly worse than 2018. And to me, that's a really scary statement. I don't know if he'll be right on that. But we all remember the margins that were taking place in 2018 and what a difficult year that was. When probably half the mortgage companies out there lost money. So, it's really time for mortgage companies to bear down and be looking at, people, process, and their technology and platform, and really start to work on their business and get ready, for margin compression and obviously kind of a normalization of the mortgage market.
Yeah, and you talked about it at the outset, just that this is what you guys are hyper focused on right now. But it's just a very interesting dynamic going on right now in the mortgage industry. If you go back to before the pandemic, and we were in New Orleans at our winter conference, 2 Februaries ago, modernizing their company. New tech, emerging tech was at the top of every mortgage lender's to-do list for 2020. The pandemic hits in March, and you can do nothing except just react and change your business model for a month or two, and then fend off business for about another year. As you noted, it's still busy, but it's at a point where leaders like yourself can start to take a look at their business. At the same time, the clock's kind of ticking, right? All these big lenders are going public scale. Rocket Mortgage announces they want to be everything: mortgage, title, appraisal, real estate. You got lenders, Zillow, that's going into mortgage lending. And as you noted, refis are going to fall off, and the margin compression and the drop of volume is going to happen sooner rather than later. And I just view these next 6 to 12 months as the most important ever for mortgage lenders in terms of your future viability and profitability.
Yeah, we've been saying it for years, and COVID was a good excuse, and the profits were a great, fallback and excuse. But we've been trying to drive cost out of the mortgage manufacturing process we've been saying it at every conference for years and years, and we just haven't been able to accomplish it. And maybe this will be the time, because maybe just the technology wasn't there. Maybe the profits weren't there. Well, companies are flush with capital to invest, and it's really where are you going to invest that capital that was made in 2020. And you already see deals happening, right? These blockchain companies coming in and partnering with mortgage companies. And I think it's a neat kind of neat dynamic is, do you do what Blend and Roostify and some of the others did? And that was they built their product and had mortgage companies come to them, as opposed to a blockchain or a tech company coming in and just going ahead and buying a mortgage company and partnering with them. And then you already have the origination platform, and then you have the tech, and it meets, and there's some magic there. It'll be interesting to see for sure.
This is the last week of Mortgage Today. I'm Rick Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative, joined this week by First Community Mortgage CEO Keith Canter. Got about 10 minutes left with Keith. And Keith, one of the things I wanted to kind of pick your brain on, First Community is such a culture-rich organization. You talked about the importance, though, of bringing down costs. Just a lot of our members were considering, announcing dates on full returns to the office, or at least, the announcement of a formal hybrid plan with the Delta variant. I think a lot of lenders have kind of taken the foot off the gas pedal there. Where are you guys at with work from home versus work remote, brick and mortar space? Do you view that as a way that mortgage lenders can maybe cut some costs in the future? And just your thought on that matter.
Yeah, I think we've kind of beat up the pros and cons of working from home versus coming to the office. And I think that gets into the individual company's preference on how their organization, their senior leadership wants to build culture. What we've done, and we found this to be really appreciative by our employees, is we've just given them the choice. Work from home, come to the office if you're local. And, I'm an office guy, even though I'm at home today, but I like going into the office. I like being around people. And so I choose to do that. But I tell you where our employees have done well, and I'm sure it's the same on with many people on the call, is they've earned that ability because they performed so admirably through the pandemic and being remote. You know, we were almost 100% remote there for several months, and our efficiency numbers were through the roof. And with the technology today, we can measure, you know, most people's production. So we're very excited about where it kind of all shakes out. It'll be some type of hybrid approach. We're not going to, our employees, you know, when we do the surveys and you talk to them, we'd like, well, we'd like to have an office and the ability to work from home. And you're kind of like, well, you're kind of not going to get the best of both worlds. So we probably see where, you know, shared office space, you know, where the IT group might come in one day and they all plug down, or HR comes in and just uses a section of the office, which will cut down the need for space. We're not looking for lease space now, and we're certainly going to reduce overhead over time with this type of approach. We're going to need far less physical space, and really that also, when you have this remote environment, you really are able to hire from across the country, really from the very best talent pool. Our president of our organization lives in Atlanta, comes up a couple times a month, you know, visits with employees, but we've seen no, I don't know, problems with that type of arrangement. So it's been a positive, to be honest with you.
2021, a lot more refinance activity than anybody thought we'd get this year, you know, in part due to, I think, you know, the Fed being very aggressive on the bond buying side, the Delta variant, you know, keeping bond and treasury rates low. As we move forward, though, you know, there's only so much refi out there. Reports suggest the train's not coming to a stop yet, but you know, eventually we're going to be in a climate that is heavily purchase business driven. Just looking at how this year has played out, you know, you had really the spring like fury of people, just, you know, the reports of, you know, 30, 40 bids on homes. And, you know, I think that, you know, pushed a lot of people to the sideline. Talked on the show the last couple of weeks about just the perception that there are a lot of sideline wannabe home buyers out there. Now we're starting to see some reports that the supply side, some help to the inventory side a little bit. I still think that's a major lingering problem that the industry is going to have to deal with. But Redfin does a real good monthly kind of state of the housing market report, and in that report they said in May over 5% of listings dropped their sales price in May. There's been a lot of anecdotal information and evidence out there. You're going to see that again in June, and then again into July when those numbers finally come out. But so it feels like people are starting to drop their prices a little bit. Wannabe home buyers can be a little bit more selective. It feels like there's a lot of demand out there from buyers. The supply is still limited. How do you see the purchase market in general playing out over the course of the rest of this year and into next year's spring and summer?
Yeah, well, I don't think we should. I think we should celebrate and get kind of excited about, you know, the fact that the market is, when you say softening, maybe returning to a more normal. But I don't see it. I don't see it moving from a seller's market. It's clearly going to stay with more demand than supply, I think, for a while, for numerous reasons. Number one, just the lack of building that took place in 2010 to 2020, just millions of underbuilt, you know, homes that weren't built coming out of the recession. Then the millennials that sat on the sideline for years as they watched their parents lose homes, and, you know, the trauma that caused, and they got out of the market. Now millennials 30 to 33 are coming into the market and buying homes and seeing that they're good investments. So I certainly see the next year and a half, couple years being continuing to be a strong seller's market. However, what we'd like to see, like you talking about, is more of a normalization of, hey, it's great that your house can sell in 8 to 10 days if you're a seller, but not so much for a buyer. So if cycle times could just normalize back to, you know, maybe, and it's crazy to say 30 days because they probably moved from maybe 6 days to 10 days right now here in the Middle Tennessee area. But getting away from the ridiculous, I'll give $50,000 over your list price, or 32 bids on a house that just went on the market. You know, they do the coming soon just so they can get all the interest. And then by the end of the weekend, they have 30 bids, you know, and if we can just get back to more of a normal environment. I heard you talk last week, and the speaker, and I don't know if it was you or the speaker, they were talking about what a great opportunity now for loan officers to go back to all the people that they've pre-qualified over the last 6 months or year and start working that list again, because a lot of those borrowers have got frustrated and moved out into rentals, or they're still at their parents' house, or whatever it might be. You know, it's time to get them back and say, hey, the market is softening a little bit. You know, let's try this again.
Yeah, no, could not agree more. I think, you know, I think the speaker last week was talking about just the sense that there's so many people out there waiting for this mythical like crash of housing prices. It's never going to happen because of the supply demand continuum being so out of whack, and nothing on the horizon whatsoever that's going to change the supply side. So yeah, those borrowers that were looking for a home in March or April or May that went to the sideline because they think values are going to plummet, they're going to wait it out, a good group to market to. You guys are headquartered just outside maybe the hottest housing market in America right now, certainly one of the top 3 or 4, Nashville, Tennessee. Can't tell you how many anecdotal, stories I've heard just from members of ours of, seeing people moving from the coast to cities like Nashville and Denver and Austin, a little bit lower price, a little bit more in the middle of the country. What is it like, the Nashville housing market right now? It's got to be crazy right now because of a lot of people want to move to that part of America.
Yeah, on that same Redfin report, I read that as well, Rich. And Nashville is one of the cities that was listed that really hadn't declined that much. I think 74% of the listings still had multiple offers, where the national average had sunk to, somewhere around 60%. Like many of the other Austin markets, Denver, those hot markets, we have had a big influx of, California, Northeast buyers who have kind of wanted to get out of those urban areas and sell their home for millions of dollars and move in. And while the prices have certainly skyrocketed in Nashville to us, that it seems like they're really high. But you come to it from a market like Los Angeles or San Francisco or Chicago or up in the Northeast, and really the home prices are somewhat affordable. I think the last thing I saw year to date, the average sales price in Nashville, like the metro area, had gone up from like 600,000 at the beginning of the year to 670,000 in June. So a $70,000 or just a little over a 10% increase, which isn't surprising, and it sounds like a lot, but it's kind of in step with the rest of the market. But 670,000 for a median price home, when you talk about someone selling their home in California for a couple million, their median price, sounds like a bargain.
It's going to really be interesting to see, I think, once the dust settles on all the housing activity, and, there's going to be some, I think, interesting, movement of population reports that we're going to see pop up over the course of the next year or two, that you're going to see definite migrations from, coasts and urban areas to places like Nashville, more in the center of the country. And one of many interesting byproducts of a crazy last year and a half with the pandemic. So Keith, always enjoy the conversation, talking about the business with you. Really appreciate you taking some time out today to co-host with me.
Thank you, Rich. And we look forward to seeing you at the upcoming conference. Yes,
right. A little over a month away. TMC reunited in Terranea, September 19 to 21. Already have just about 400 people registered. So it's already by far our biggest conference. So looking forward to seeing everybody. Looking forward to seeing you, and many of you that I know are on live and will be listening to this after the fact. So until then, every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, the last week in Mortgage Today. We'll see you next week at the same time. Until then, have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Keith.